For our next lesson, Module 3 is about pipe model of design thinking. We have phase number 1, the purpose emphatic understanding. The learning outcome for this module. In this module, you will learn more about the first phase of the pipe model of design thinking, which is purpose emphatic understanding. And after completing this module, you should be able to 1. Craft problem statement. 2. Identify the needs of your user community. And 3. You will be able to present persona. Okay, so for the learning content, the phase 1. Purpose builds on exploration phase that takes off from the quest to dig on for what inspires people to get engaged in the innovation process. It employs the designer's critical thinking on the design space for problem recognition, problem definition, and as the designer get higher level of emphatic understanding of the problem. Guide exploration into the solution space by enacting the ideation phase of the design process. Learning to think in critically analytical and evaluative ways means using mental processes such as focusing, categorizing, selecting, and judging. It is an analytic, evaluative process to support informed decision making. Critical thinking requires a predisposition to be critically analytic in the process of making sense of arguments and logic and rendering informed decisions and judgments in an effort to make a well-reasoned, clear, and responsive conclusion. The quest for purpose involves ability to get to know the user, which is your community, to recognize and define their problem using critical thinking, and emphatic understanding. An innovation is bound to be useless unless we understand, connect, and care for the user or the community. This is emphatic understanding. You have watched The Bahay Kubo by Mark Amin and the group. You have seen there that emphatic understanding is done if you immerse yourselves with the community, if you understand the problem of the user, which is also your community. These are the essential steps used in this phase. For phase 1, number 1 step is identification of a problem or issue in a community. Number 2 is the preliminary research. You have to research through books, and most of the groups can research on the internet. Number 3 is the ethnographic research. To gain deeper understanding and connection with the user, you're going to search on their profile. And number 4 is analyzing data. And number 5 is the creation of your persona. You note, class, that your class will be divided into teams with 10 members each. This is done supposedly if we are face-to-face. Unfortunately, we are not face-to-face, so you are divided into teams wherein the teams consist of members who belong to the same community or nearby barangay. So, in step 1, identification of a problem or issue. In this step, you may start looking for possible projects that you think will work on. Identify a problem or issue in your community that is close to your heart. So, who do you want to help? That is the first question you need to answer. Why do you want to help them? That is the second. And then describe using the graphics below. Okay? So, we have the problem. And then, okay, so we have problem and issue. What is the problem or the issue about? And what are the factors contribute to the problem? And what is the currently being done to address the problem and who needs help? So you will describe the problem or the issue using these graphics. Okay? And then, for step number 2, preliminary research. For step 2, preliminary research. You need to conduct an online research to gather preliminary information about the problem and issue. So, what are you going to research online? Is this problem happening in other places? You will find online if the problem happening in your chosen community also is happening in other places. Take note, you are not supposed to think of any solution at this point. Okay, you are only doing this to understand more about the problem or issue around the user. Okay, then combine the information you gathered from step 1 and step 2. What is step 1 again? Step 1 is to identify a problem or identification of a problem or issue using this diagram or graphics, and then step number 2 is preliminary research. So you combine the information you gathered from step 1 and step 2, and then at this point you are now ready to identify the problem and craft your problem statement. How to craft a problem statement? So use this formula. Identify the verb plus identify the user plus the problem to be tackled. For example, how can we help? So the verb here is help. Okay. Identify the user. Students of ISU. So the verb is help. The user is students of ISU. What is the problem to be tackled? To become more effective self-directed learners. So that is the problem to be tackled. How to become more effective self-directed learners. Or another example is we have the verb, how can we encourage? Sino ang user? Cabagueños. What is the problem to be tackled? Reduce plastic waste. So that is how to craft a problem. Now for your activity 1, you will have to craft your problem statement. But you also have to create this graphics in step number 1. So create a graphics. That will be your first activity. Your second activity actually is to craft your problem statement. And then number 3, ethnographic research or empathy study. The main goal of this process is to gain deeper understanding and connection with the community. How do you get to know the people involved in the issues, problems in the community? How can you connect with them? So have this in your mind always. Put yourselves into the user's shoes. Okay? Put yourselves into the person you are going to interview with. Experience their everyday life. How do they think and feel? If it is not safe, because you need to interview people around the community, you just have to focus on problems inside your house. Okay? Just to be safe. You may use the following methods: observation, and number 2, interview. Under the observation, the purpose of this method is the A, E, I, O, U, and poems, or the A, E, I, O, U, and poems observation technique. As tools for empathy study, during field observation, record observations under appropriate headings. What to observe? Letter A, their activities. Letter E, their environment. Letter I, their interactions. And letter O, objects. And letter U are their users. So you will write your observations here beside the just the adjacent column on the activities, environment, interaction, objects, and users. Poems technique. For poems technique, you will write the people you interview below, the objects, the environment. You discuss what are the objects present during the interview. The environment, describe their environment. Message, how do they deliver message? What is their message? What is the content of their message? And their services. Use interview as a technique to clarify observations and assumptions. This is your opportunity to dig deeper into the inner thoughts and feeling of the user. Okay? It is better to conduct face-to-face interviews to discover your user and their needs. Okay, since face-to-face interview for other communities is not safe, I am saying this again, that you just need to focus on the problems inside your house, or inside your house, or problems within the community. Just be sure that you do not have COVID-19 cases in your community. Okay, so during the interview, you have to prove to uncover the truths behind their human story. Go deeper, the truth about the story. Observe their nonverbal cues, as well as pick out observations of their natural setting. You have to take note of the natural scenario. Okay, do not create imagination or imaginary environment wherein everything is conducive. No, you just have to take note of all the observations in the natural setting. Record all the interview data for analysis, word for word. You have to record using your cell phone. You have to record the interview. If you have tape recorder, it's better. If the user allowed you or allows you to take videos, then it's good, or it's better. You may conduct interviews in pairs or groups of 3. Decide on the role each member is to play: interviewer, note-taker, and observer. A mix of both type A and B questions are important during the interviews. Type A questions helps keep your interviewees at ease while you build rapport with him or her before moving into tougher type, which is type B. Type B questions, which unravels deeper information. Type B questions will aim to evoke stories and explore emotions. Conclude with type A questions as you end your conversation. Okay, so what is type A questions and what is type B questions? When we say type A questions, they are just questions easy to answer. But type B questions, these are no questions which will be answered by their story. Something that is difficult for them to share. Something that is something about their problems right away. Okay. And then next, something about their problems, which are somehow difficult to share to other people. Activity 2. Prepare your guide questions prior to the conduct of your interview using the template below. This is your empathy study plan, demographics and questions, who will be interviewed, personal motivations and questions, areas related to the problem, then questions. Conduct an ethnographic research or empathy study. Okay, that is only for activity 2. We are now on step number 4. For step number 4, you need to analyze data gathered, identifying and prioritizing needs. In this particular step, your primary goals are to, number 1, cluster the important data and identify the user needs. Process number 1 is identifying useful data or individual power. From the interview data, write down points you think are interesting or significant. Write one data point in one sentence only. Do not summarize or interpret. Use word for word as supplied by the interviewee. Okay, do not summarize. You just use word for word what the interviewee said. Next, you have to take note that team leader may split the team into 3 after this step to create 3 micro groups before proceeding to process number 2. Your process number 2 is to share the data points within each micro group. One team member will exchange data points to another team member. The partner will highlight the most useful data by putting an asterisk to the data point. Each data point with an asterisk will be used in the next step. For the process number 3, cluster similar data together, or the team effort. Each microgroup are now required to turn in their asterisk data points, cluster asterisk data points according to common pattern, learning points from the interviewees. From each cluster, write a general team or cluster head. Okay, so as easy as that. You combine all together the important data points, you take note. Okay. For activity 3, describe in 1 to 2 sentences the clustered information based on data points. This will be the insight. Reflection of each cluster. What does the clustered information tell you? And from the insights, derive the user's needs. Need number 1, need number 2, and need number 3. What makes a good statement? Good need statement. It is not a solution. By example, I need money for internet connection to study during the new normal. But a better example is, I need flexible learning opportunities to study during the new normal. It addresses a gap and it addresses your project statement. Remember, you are not identifying the needs which will be addressed given solution in the next phase, which is ideation. And number 5, step 5, is creation of persona. Persona is a profile which will serve as a reference and inspiration throughout the solution development. It represents the community or the users you are working with. Personas are more than just demographic information. A persona needs to capture the person's behavior, beliefs, motivation, and pain points. Like this persona here, sample persona, which is Strong Suping. Strong Suping is an example of a persona which describes the community which is strong. Sample persona template, as you can see. So the persona name is Suping, Strong Suping. What is her motivation? What is her favorite quote? What are her top 3 needs? And so on and so forth. Okay, for the assessment task, you create your own persona based on the information and data you gathered. You may use the sample template as your reference. Present the persona to the class via prescribed video conferencing platform. Okay, so that is for module number 3, the PIPE model of design thinking.